The poll closes there, of course, at 7. You just heard Bill talking about it, that state might be so decisively clear by virtue of the exit polling that we could call that state. We'll see in a moment if we can. Other states we may be able to tell you something about are such states as Indiana, where, of course, that's a critical state for McCain to hold on to. It's been red forever, so we'll be watching very carefully to see if we can get any result there. We may be able to tell you something about the governor's race out there, an incumbent Republican. If he were able to hang on, that might be helpful to John McCain. So we just seconds away as you see the clock tick down to 7 o'clock straight up, and we're going to be able to tell you a couple of things. First, some results here. In the state of Vermont, now this is no surprise at all, Fox News projects that Barack Obama will carry that state. In the state of Kentucky, a border state, never really in doubt or contested this year, we project John McCain, the winner in the state of Kentucky. Georgia, a state where Barack Obama was thought to have a real chance, too close to call. Virginia, a state everybody's watching, too close to call at this hour. Similar situation in South Carolina. We rate that state too close to call as well. The same thing for Indiana presidency. However, we are able to tell you something about the race in Indiana for governor. And Fox News projects that the incumbent Republican Governor Mitch Daniels, a former Bush budget director, will win over Jill Long Thompson. This is the second time, I believe, that they've faced off in this race. And Daniels appears to be able to carry the state, and we can call it right at this hour. He had a pretty good lead. So let's take a look at our map and see from these results what we can tell about our electoral votes. Now, we've called 2 states, and we'll be updating that. That's the map we'll be looking at. Those, the first states we've called have not yet appeared there, but they will, as we noted earlier, soon. And you'll also be able to watch throughout the night the electoral count accumulate on the left-hand side of that very large screen over there on the wall. In the meantime, we also have the exit polls to look at, and let's turn to Megan Kelly for what she's seeing in the exit polls. Hi, Megan.
Hi there, Brett. Well, here I am over at my big tool, the launch pad, which I'm going to show off to you in 1 second. We're going to talk right now about Virginia and Indiana. Now, in the past 60 years, Virginia has gone blue, has gone Democratic in a presidential election exactly 1 time for Lyndon Johnson back in 1964. On the other hand, the pre-election polls really favored Obama here. So how are they voting in Virginia so far? Well, let me call it up and I will show you. Take a look at this. These are change voters. Obviously, that was a big message for Barack Obama. For the people who said their top quality in a presidential candidate was who can bring the change, take a look at the numbers. Barack Obama getting 92% of those voters, John McCain just 7%. But what about experience? This was John McCain's message. Well, if you wanted a guy with experience, you voted for McCain in Virginia, 95% to Obama's 4%. Take a look at white evangelical Christians down in Virginia, going 78% for John McCain, just 21% for Barack Obama. Not a huge surprise. That's a group John McCain's done well with. Suburban voters, Barack Obama was expected to do well with this group, and he is in Virginia. You can see he's got the edge over McCain, 54% Obama, 45% for McCain. Now on to Indiana. This state, Indiana, has not gone blue or Democratic in 44 years. But the state is next door to Illinois, Barack Obama's home state, and that may be helping Obama keep things tight. Let's take a look at the independents in Indiana. Look at this. Going 58% for Barack Obama, 39% for John McCain. Independents make up about 1/4 of the voters in Indiana, so those are significant numbers. Now, what about white voters? No, right, we got new voters here going, okay, and you can see that it's 68% for Barack Obama, 30% for John McCain. That's a decent margin for Barack Obama. Whites with no degree. These are white voters who haven't gotten a college education. Very narrow margin. John McCain is winning with them, but not by much. 50% for him, 48% for Obama. Obama struggled with this group in the primary. They backed Hillary Clinton by almost a 30-point margin. Again, let's take, there we go, white evangelical Christians, 66% for McCain, 32% for Barack Obama. That's in Indiana. The bottom line is that these are 2 very red states, Britt, and Barack Obama maintained a competitive edge in both of them throughout the days leading up to these 2 votes, and we are seeing that competition here still tonight. Britt?
I think it's worth emphasizing, Megan, again, that this is exit poll information. And we all recall, and I know you do very well, 4 years ago when we sat here on election night in the early hours. We weren't saying it, but we were all confident based on the exit polling that we were looking at President Kerry. And the exit poll sample turned out to be off base in a number of ways. We are hopeful, indeed, I won't say confident, but we're certainly hopeful that the people who do the exit polling, the firm that does it, has done a better job this time. But we are regarding all exit polling. We're reporting it for what it appears to show. But let's keep in mind, I think you'd agree, that this is exit polling only.
Absolutely right, and there's a few caveats that I gave, half an hour ago, and I'll give them again. First of all, Barack Obama tends to poll. We've seen this in virtually every election, much better than he actually performs. The exit polls show him doing better than the actual numbers wind up supporting. And also Democrats tend to do better in these exit polls than Republicans do in general. Having said that, these polls may underrepresent the Democrats' numbers because while we've tried to account for the early voting and the absentee voting, there's only so much we can do to account for that. And so there's an argument that, they may even out because Barack Obama's votes may be underrepresented because these don't necessarily reflect the early voting. So with all those caveats, take my reports for what they're worth. I'm going to try to bring you the numbers, but it's an inexact science, to put it mildly.
Well, of course, and the antidote to exit poll worries is more of the actual tabulated vote, and as that comes in, we can make better assessments of what the exit polls really tell us. Anyway, thanks, Megan. We'll be back to you early and often.
Democrats, but this is not a huge surprise, but the Democrats are pretty happy about Mark Warner getting elected in Virginia.
Not a big surprise at all, though, but this race in Georgia, Saxby Chambliss, also at 7:30, polls close in North Carolina. Elizabeth Dole facing a real challenge, the greatest challenge of her career. Do you think she can hold on tonight?
Well, in the polls that we've seen going through this race all along, she is the decided underdog here. It's not a great year to be a Republican incumbent generally, and she's had some problems in the state. She's running against a very good competitor there. Also in Georgia, Saxby Chambliss, 5 or 6 weeks ago, he was fine. He was floating to re-election. There was no problem.
What was it, the turning point, the economy?
I think it was the economy. Obama had all about left the state, and then suddenly, when you had the economic turnaround, he started broadcasting commercials in that state, started putting the heat on in that state. Turnout's going to be very important in that state. 29% black electorate.
You get a huge black turnout, and then the Martin folks, they were blown out by it, and Obama came back in, we put more money back in the state, not necessarily to win it, but to help Martin folks. They were blown out by it, and Obama came back in, we put more money back in the state, not necessarily to win it, but to help Martin win the Senate seat.
Yeah, from the Obama point of view, if they could win Virginia and they could win the Senate seat in North Carolina and win a Senate seat in Georgia, that would make them look more like a national president as opposed to being a blue state president. So there's a lot riding on this for Obama, how these things come out. In North Carolina, I happen to be from there. Elizabeth Dole and Bob Dole, of course, have been staples of Republican politics for years. They're part of the brand. She made a terrible mistake right at the end, and this was the ad she ran against Kay Hagan, talking about godless money. And Kay Hagan, and because she'd gone to a fundraiser held by an atheist, and Kay Hagan happens to be an elder in the Presbyterian Church, or teaches Sunday school, and it backfired on Elizabeth Dole, and it just may help Barack Obama in North Carolina.
But sometimes the candidates themselves matter. Elizabeth Dole was ranked, according to one of these rankings, the 93rd most effective senator, and Kay Hagan made an ad using that fact. And, Elizabeth Dole has made almost no impact as a senator. She's a very famous person, but in 6 years in the Senate, she had very little to point to. She also had only been in the state of North Carolina for 16 days in the year 2005. That's the definition of going Washington. So you can talk about sort of all the national trends, but, she just hadn't really done her job as a senator.
But it could help Obama. Her weaknesses now could help Obama.
Reverse coattails? Yeah.
Again, the body's not cold, but I'd like to point out that the results aren't in. But I spent a lot of time in North Carolina. The problem of constituent service is an issue for Elizabeth Dole. And I think David's point is a really good point. The reason I brought up the Howard Dean thing, and I didn't mean to create chaos here. No, it's all good fun. But service is an issue for Elizabeth Dole. And I think David's point is a really good point. The reason I brought up the Howard Dean thing, and I didn't mean to create chaos here. No, it's all good fun. But that is, are the Democrats a coastal party? Remember those maps, and we'll see maps over the next few days, and we'll see maps of the counties. You remember the red country, right? And then here are the university towns, right? And or the liberal votes and so on. If he gets a Georgia, a North Carolina, Virginia, say he gets 2 out of 3, it changes much in terms of people's perception. and also gives him, I know I'm jumping ahead, were he to become president, leverage with liberal